Welcome. Today we are going to discuss ecosystem, a very basic introduction and overview of what ecosystems are. Before we do that, let's do a little bit of a review. We know what biotic and abiotic factors are. They are the living and non-living things that make up where we live and where we are and in our environment. Biotic are living and abiotic are non-living. Now let's look at autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs make up their own food, where heterotrophs have to go search for their own food. Knowing those words, we can now go into ecosystems. So, what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is a community of all biotic and abiotic things that work together and live together. So, think of your home and all the things in it. You likely have furniture, books, food in your refrigerator, family, and maybe even pets. Your home consists of living and non living things, just like an ecosystem. Again, it's a community of biotic and abiotic things that work together and live together. What exactly is a community? This is important that you know. This consists of all the populations of all the species that live in a particular area. So, a way to help me remember this is same, same, same. Same organisms in the same area at the same time. The concepts of ecosystems and communities are closely related. The difference is that an ecosystem includes the physical environment while a community doesn't. In other words, a community is the biotic or living component of an ecosystem. In addition to this biotic component, the ecosystem also includes an abiotic component, the physical environment. Recall that we have discussed auto and heterotrophs. So, ecosystems have three main components: autotrophs, heterotrophs, and non living matter. Remember what autotrophs and heterotrophs are? Provide an example here in the space provided. I'll only give you a few seconds since this is just review. Good. Autotrophs are plants and they make up their own energy or food. Heterotrophs are things like caterpillars, cows, hawks, lions, or anything that needs to eat another organism for energy. Plants make up the majority of autotrophs in an ecosystem, and heterotrophs are mainly animals. Non-living matter are things such as soil, sediment, leaf litter, and other organic matter on the ground or at the bottom of an aquatic system. There are two types of ecosystems, closed and open. A closed ecosystem is one that does not have any inputs or gas exchanges of energy from the surrounding environment, or it doesn't have any outputs, exchanges of energy from within the ecosystem. An open ecosystem are ones that have both inputs and outputs. Now, we have seen an open ecosystem in things such as the carbon cycle model. An example of a closed ecosystem would be like this jar right here. There's an ecosystem with a terrarium inside, but it's closed, so it's not having any inputs or outputs. An open ecosystem is pretty much all natural ecosystems out there, except for the universe. Ecosystems can be divided into two big groups. So they're either land ecosystems or water ecosystems. Now think about where you live. Would that be considered a land or water? What type of ecosystem is that? I live in a desert one. Name a few right here that you already know. Good. We're going to discuss this in the next video. Now we will look at this short video and see some examples of these both aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. As you watch the video, take note of What are the key environmental factors in determining which biomes are found in certain places? Now, I know you've heard biomes for the very first time today, and we will discuss that in more details throughout this course and the year, more towards the end of the year. But for now, let's look at this video to give us a brief synopsis of what biomes are. And then we'll come back and you will write your answer in the space provided. Now let's talk a little bit about energy and matter in ecosystems. So energy flows through food webs and food chains. Food webs is like this one right here, is a network of organisms that feed one on the other. And the energy is being transferred from one organism to another. Typically, only 10% of energy is transferred. A food chain is more of a linear network of links in a food web, starting from a producer to a top consumer. It could be an owl, a lion, a hawk, something that could eat pretty much anything or any other organism. Here's a sample of some food chains. So there's a grassland biome food chain where we have grass gets eaten by a grasshopper and the flow of energy is seen and represented by these arrows. So we have primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and top consumers. Energy usually enters ecosystems as sunlight and is captured in a chemical form by photosynthesizers such as plants and algae. The energy is then passed through the ecosystem, changing forms as organisms metabolizes, produce weight, eat one another, and eventually die and decompose. And each time energy changes forms, some of it is converted to heat. These are the trophic levels, and like we said, 10% of energy is lost at each level as we move up. Now let's look a little bit at matter. So matter isn't linear like energy. Matter is recycled throughout the Earth's ecosystems. It goes, it comes, and swirls around, whereas energy, it's very linear. The same atoms are used over and over again, assembled into different chemical forms, and incorporated into the bodies of different organisms. So let's take a look at our example here. Photosynthesis happens in plants. Plants get their energy and build plant cells. A bunny eats the plant, gets energy, and builds animal cells. Same molecules being recycled but used differently and rearranged into different forms, such as plant cells or animal cells. So in this next slide, we're going to watch a video and we're going to focus a little bit on energy flow. As you watch the video, try to answer the questions below. Make sure you watch it all the way until 6 minutes and about 40 seconds. That last part is very important because I will ask you a question about it in a few moments. Okay, now that you have watched the video, what do chemosynthetic organisms release? They release water, sulfur, and glucose. This is very similar to plants. It's pretty cool how they talk about hydrovents, just like we learned in our past lesson. Hydrothermal vents, excuse me. Okay, so let's look at this pyramid. We have energy, let's say 100% with the producers, such as a plant. If it moves up, we only get 10% of that. And if it moves up, we only get 10% of this 10%, which is 1%. And tertiary consumers would only get 0.1%, which is 10% of this 10%. That's why we have a lot more producers than consumers. And you should always eat your vegetables a lot more since you get more energy. Haha. If we have no questions, we're going to do our next little task, which is put you in breakout rooms and groups of 4 or 5. You and your partners will answer these questions and write your name next to the question you've answered. We will then go over them together. Let's go over the questions together. This one is B. This one is A. This one is D, B, C. Thank you for coming to class, and we will see you again. Don't forget to do your homework.